StrayAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves all of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one framework, one philosophy, one mindset. We've written 29 books on the subject. We got more on the way that is all about one thing: making sure that you work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the ethical unfair advantage. Now, this is a topic that I've talked about before and mentioned many times here on the show, but I've had some people ask me questions about it because it seems like people don't quite understand it. So we're going to help resolve all that by talking about it right here on the show today. Now, what actually got me thinking about or knowing that we need to do a masterclass on this exact topic was the fact that I sent out one of my daily motivation text messages about this. And since I'm talking about that, let me tell you all, I have a text line where you can text me and tell me the best insight that you got from today's masterclass or from any one of these masterclasses, or you can just ask me a question to share a challenge. That number is 305-384-6894. I sent the text out where I actually use this phrase, the ethical unfair advantage, and I had some people ask me some questions about it. So it's clear to me that some people don't quite have the understanding of what the ethical unfair advantage is about. So that's what led to it here today. So you, again, text me at that number, and once you text me, you'll get my daily motivation text, which I send out every day to everybody. And I'm going to explain how you can create and leverage. First of all, you got to understand it, then understand how to create and leverage the ethical unfair advantage. So that is the topic here today, and that's what we're going to be covering. So I'm going to explain how it is, what it is, how it is, and how you can actually use it, and maybe how you're already using it, or maybe how somebody might be using it against you. Those are some insights that you might develop today as you listen to this masterclass. And if you've never heard my episode on insight itself, I did an episode on insight. That was episode 1177. And that'll be linked down below in the show notes. So let's get to it. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is the ethical unfair advantage. This is exactly what you want in life. Okay, you should be angling your work and the things that you do towards this at all times. Point number one. What is the ethical unfair advantage? It is when you have a leg up on your competition that is not against the rules and it does not violate anyone's rights. However, it gives you a better than 50-50 chance of winning. That is the ethical unfair advantage. So let me say it one more time to make sure you got it. It is where you have a leg up on your competition that is not against the rules. It does not violate anyone's rights, but it gives you a better than 50-50 chance of winning. Now, how do you do that? I think everybody understands it now. How do you do this, and what are some examples of it? One example is a casino, for example. Any of you ever been to a casino or ever gambled, period, you understand that the house usually wins. This is why casinos are such extravagant places. Casinos make a lot of money. You know why they make a lot of money? Because casinos are not 50-50 deals. When you walk into a casino and start gambling, you do not have a 50-50 chance of winning. The casino always has the advantage. That's why they win. Most of the time, the house takes you. All right, casino has more advantage than the person, and that's why they make the money most of the time. You will lose more than you will win in gambling. Any of you who is a consistent gambler, if you add it up in your life, how much you have won versus how much you have lost, there are a few people out there who actually win more often or have won more than they have lost gambling, but they are the exceptions. And if you even ask them, they will tell you most people who gamble are going to lose in the long run. Any of you who's a casual gambler, you add up all the amount you won in your life and all the amount you lost in your life, you have been a net loser as a gambler. All right, that's the way that it's set up. I can say that because I know that that's the way that it's set up. If you're playing basketball and you're 6 feet 8 inches tall and you're playing against somebody who is 5 feet 8 inches tall, you have an ethical unfair advantage simply because basketball is a game of height, because the basket, the goal is height, is high, it's 10 feet high. So if you're 6'8", you have an advantage over the guy who's 5'8". Doesn't mean the 5'8" person doesn't have a chance, but you have an ethical unfair advantage over them. In life, in anything that you do, You do not want a fair fight. Fair fights are for idiots and losers. Why? Because a fair fight is a 50-50 chance. You might win, you might lose. That is a straight up gamble. You don't want to put your success in hands of a 50-50 deal in a coin flip. When you're in fair fights, there's a 50-50 chance you could win or lose. That is called gambling, and gambling is unpredictable. And as I already told you, when people go in casinos and gamble, it's not unpredictable. The prediction is you're going to lose. In life, you got a little bit better chance, but it's still 50-50. Professionals, everybody, professionals are predictable in both action and results. I'll repeat, professionals are predictable in both action and results. They're not just predictable that they're going to work hard, but we have no idea if it's going to work out. No, professionals are predictable in that they're going to show up, they're going to do the work, and you know what kind of results they're going to produce. Smart people always play with a 51-49 or better advantage. If we're using whole numbers, we'll just say 51% chance that they're going to win. Smart people always have at least that advantage, that edge in anything that they're going to do. This is what casinos do. This is why casinos make money. It's what the government does in levying taxes and having control in their own way over you or us. The game is set up for them to win in the long run, even if you or some people get lucky and win from time to time. All right, there are people who've gone to casinos. I know people who go to casinos and they've hit it big, hit a big jackpot and won a whole lot of money. And they are one of the exceptions of people who in their lifetime actually came out a winner in a casino. And I know people who go to casinos all the time, they gamble all the time, and they'll tell me about the times when they go and they actually won and they made more money than they lost that particular day. But I don't hear from them all the other times that they go and they lose money. They don't call me or text me about that. But they lose a lot more than they win. So this is the way the game is set up. And again, casinos are winners. The government ends up being a winner. There is no valor, everybody, in fighting fair fights and losing. All right, so the exceptions who fight the fair fights, or what's actually not a fair fight, is an unfair fight for them, and they end up winning, those are exceptions. And exceptions, everybody, prove the rule. Let me repeat. Exceptions prove the rule. When I explain to people, and I give people these principles, and I say things like, for example, coming from a background in basketball, I would always say things like, listen, height is an advantage in basketball. If you are undersized, quote unquote, trying to play basketball, you are going up against very tall odds, and you're going to have to be a very exceptional player in order to make it in basketball. If you're 5'7", it's very unlikely that you're going to make it as a professional basketball player. And I would tell players that straight up. Whereas most quote-unquote motivators are not going to tell you that. They're going to give you some bullshit to make you feel good about yourself. I'm going to tell you the straight-up truth that, yeah, you can make it, but it's going to be goddamn hard for you to make it because of your size. Your size is a disadvantage in the game of basketball. And every single time I would say something like that, you would always get the genius who would come in and they would start naming the couple of people that they knew of who are around that height who quote-unquote made it in basketball. And I would say, well, that's the fucking point. The fact that you can point out the exceptions is proof that there's a rule. If you can name the exceptions to a rule, that proves the very rule, okay? So when I tell you that casinos are set up for you to lose and for them to take your money, and you know somebody who made a whole lot of money in casinos, exactly. Now name the other 10 million people who didn't make money and they all lost, all right? So this is the whole point that I'm making here. You do not want to be in fair fights and lose. There's no valor in that. We're not talking about moral victories here. As Jay-Z, who I talked about in my Virtual Mentors episode number 281, episode 281. Jay-Z said, moral victories are for minor league coaches. And the metaphor that he was making there, that's not a diss to anybody who's a minor league coach who's listening to this. It was a metaphor that says moral victories are for people who are playing the game small. If you want to play the game big in life, you got to set yourself up to win by putting yourself in a position where no matter how things go, you still have the advantage. All right, that's where you want things in life. We are not here talking about playing the game fair. Yes, we're playing the game fair technically by the rules, but we don't want to play fair in that everybody we go against has an equal chance of beating us that we have of beating them. All right, how are you going to get ahead in life playing those odds? Trick question, you won't. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, we are talking about the ethical unfair advantage, what it means, how to get it, and how to use it. Number 2, here's how you do it. You must play the game on your terrain. What is your terrain? Well, we're going to find out in a second. But you want to set yourself up in anything that you're doing in life to where, just based on the grounds that you are performing on, based on the rules of the game that you're playing in, based on the way the game is set up, you already have an advantage just by showing up. That's the mentality that I want you to adopt here. A casino, when they see you walking in with all your cash and all your chips, they see you walking into the casino has already won. They already won just by you walking in with your cash. You know how they already won? Because every single game in that casino floor, the slot machines, the blackjack, the poker, the roulette wheel, the craps, and whatever other games there are in the casino, I don't know. Whatever other games there are, they already know. Every single game in there is scientifically set up for them to win. Doesn't mean that you can't win. It doesn't mean that it's impossible for you to walk out of there with more money than you walked in with, but they're playing the odds. They're playing the probability. They know if 100,000 people come through the casino and they all gamble at least $1 that day, the casino knows that the odds are set up that they are going to walk away with more. You're gonna leave with less money than you walked in with. Of all those people put together, those people as a whole, let's say 100,000 people walk into a casino and they each gamble $1, that the casino is going to end up leaving, you're going to leave those 100,000 people with their $1, that's $100,000. The casino is going to take more of that money than they're going to give to you. All right, everybody got that? They're going to take more of that 100,000 than they're going to give back, or that people are going to win. The game is set up for them to win. The game is being played on their terrain. Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War. If you have not read that book, again, as I say all the time, if I mention a book here, go get it. Sun Tzu said, if you know if you know yourself, you know the terrain, and you know the enemy, in 100 battles, you will never be in peril. You will never be in danger if you know yourself, you know the enemy you're going against, and you know the grounds on which the game is being played. This is exactly what I'm talking about here. So the question then you have to ask yourself is, what is your game? What is your game? What's the game that you can win most times? What's the game where you have at least a 51-49 advantage? Where are you better than your competition? Now, this could be in the macro or the micro, meaning in what game are you better than other people so that you can put yourself in that game so you can win. Other people aren't as good as you. Or if you're already in the game and you're looking at your competitors who are in the same game, what parts of the game, what aspects of the game do you have an advantage that would make the game easier for you or set you up with better odds of actually winning? Where do you have a head start on the competition? These are the places where you need to be playing. These are the questions you need to be asking yourself, and these are the places that you need to be playing in life, because these are the places where your chances of winning are simply higher. All right, investors, people who trade stocks, they don't just randomly trade like common folk. They don't just go into the stock market or go into their trading apps and just start doing stuff randomly. They don't do that. Now, people who end up losing do that, but people who play the game at a higher level, they don't do that. You know what they do? They only do deals and they only put $1 down when they have some type of advantage. They only get involved where there is some type of advantage, whether it's they got to their first mover advantage, meaning they got access to something before everybody else did, or they have an informational advantage. They just know some things that other people do not know. It's a time advantage. That's the first mover advantage. They get access to some opportunity before everybody else has access to that opportunity. Or maybe they just have a straight up access advantage. They have access to something that other people will never have access to. That's the only time that they put $1 into something, because they have some type of advantage, some way that they can win that other people don't have access to. This is how they get ethical, unfair advantages. You thought, I know, if you went to school or you listen to some of these bland motivators out here who are just telling you about hard work, and they tell you how this guy worked hard and this person woke up this early and this person never went to sleep, and they're indoctrinating you into believing that people who create higher levels of success in their life do it just because they outworked everybody, or they just out-muscled everybody, or they're just more determined than everybody else. Let me clarify those things for you, or let me add some realness into their bland bullshit. Yes, hard work does matter. I mean, you listen to a guy who says work on your game. Yes, it does matter that you be disciplined. Yes, wake up early, go to bed late, work hard and everybody else. All of those things do matter. However, if you do not mix in some spice in there, you got to put some spicing into that cooking. The spice in that cooking, the flavor of that cooking, is you having an ethical, unfair advantage combined with the hard work. That's when you become great. You watch the TV show Shark Tank on ABC, or I don't know if the show's even out anymore, but you find the reruns on any one of those apps of Shark Tank, or maybe it's on YouTube or something like that. those sharks, when they invest in businesses and Mark Cuban puts $100,000 into a business, or Kevin O'Leary says he's going to invest $850,000 into somebody's business, you think they're just doing that just randomly where it's a 50-50 chance that they're going to make their money back? Hell no. They only invest that money when they have calculated in their own minds that there is at least a 51-49 chance. Again, I'm just using those as whole numbers. At least a 51-49 chance that they're going to make their money back. Now, do they always make their money back? No. Sometimes they invest in the business and you don't make money. But in the big picture, in the macro, they will, in the big picture, make money. That's how they became sharks in the first place, is that they put themselves in a position to where they always have an ethical, unfair advantage. They are not fighting fair fights. Barbara Corcoran and Mark Cuban and Damon John are not competing against you when it comes to the investment world, because they only invest in things in which they have some advantage that you ain't got. All right, that's how they got to the position that they're at. They have some information that you don't have. They know people that you don't know. They have access that you don't have. They can get phone calls answered that you can't get answered. They have the phone numbers that you don't have. This is how they get their advantages, and this is how they win. Now, again, they combine that with effort and hard work and discipline and showing up all the time. And then when it's time for them to write their books or go to a college and give speeches, they only tell you about that part. All right, they spend 99% of their time telling you about all the hard work and determination and the discipline. I'm going to fill in the 1%. The 1% is, all right, here are the things that you can't do. Here are the things that you don't know that put me in the position to be on this stage and you to sit in the damn crowd, which is they have an ethical, unfair advantage that you do not have. And that's how they got to where they're at, combined with the effort. Okay, so now a whole bunch of people, you see people who are successful, people who write books or have podcasts or they give speeches or they made a certain amount of money or they're notable for their success. And they tell you about all the hard work and the effort and the discipline and the confidence and mental toughness, the same things I talk about here on this show every single day, but they leave out the special sauce. They leave out that secret sauce. The secret sauce is that they have an advantage that you don't have. Your job, with all this being said, is to figure out what advantage do you have over the population as a whole, or the micro population of whatever area you decide to get involved in life. And then how do you press on that advantage? How do you step on the gas of that advantage to where you are ahead of everybody else, to where they just can't keep up with you? They can't compete with you. That's what you're looking for in life. This is the game that you need to be playing. This is where your chances of winning are just higher. This is where you become the casino. Again, doesn't mean that you win every single time. Like, people go in casinos and win money every day. All right, they make sure that somebody wins money every day. They make sure a bunch of people win money every day. Why? So because that keeps the allure up. Because if everybody lost every time they went to casino, casinos would go out of business. People would just say, well, shit, nobody wins when they go in the casino. Let's just never go to the casino. We're guaranteed to lose money. No, they got to make sure a few people win every now and then just to keep the allure up that, hey, maybe it might be you today. Today, you might be the lucky one who wins. And we as human beings, we are dumb enough to believe that we might be the lucky one. 100,000 people walk in the casino every day. Each one of them dumb enough to think that they might be the one who wins today. 99,990 of us are stupid enough to believe it, and we end up losing, and 10 people end up winning. And because of those 10, another 100,000 will come in tomorrow. Again, I'm just making up numbers here just to illustrate my point. But this is basically the way that it works. You need an advantage. All right, if you are out here trying to fight fair, you will lose. Eventually, you're going to lose. Now, you might win some fair fights, but eventually you're going to lose. Remember what Jay-Z said: moral victories are for minor league coaches. All right, you don't want the moral victory of I fought fair and lost. So fuck that. All right, you want to win. All right, we're here to win. Work on your game. The game, we got to win the game. All right, you get trophies for winning. You get recognized for winning. You get remembered when you win. All right, nobody remembers a loser. Now, people might feel sorry for you for a little while, but eventually we're going to move on the next day to somebody who won. Nobody celebrates losers. There's a TV show called Game of Thrones that was on HBO. I'm sure many of you watched that show. And there was this family in Game of Thrones called the Starks, the Stark family. And they were, and without going too deep into the plot and explaining it, but they were one of the royal families on this TV show. But one of the things about this family, the Stark family, there was a husband and a wife. They were both king and queen of a certain area of this fictional world on this TV show. It was a husband and there was a wife. There were a couple kids. There were several kids, actually, as a matter of fact. And they all are growing up throughout the show as the show goes on. But one of the things about the Starks, one of the things that starkly stood out about them, pun intended, was that They always wanted to be fair and just. That's what their whole family was about. The dad and mom were about that. The kids grew up being that way. They just wanted to be fair and just about everything. They didn't want to do any backhanded things. They didn't like the Machiavellian way that some other people ruled over their lands, or the way that they dealt with other people, and the sneaky backhanded stuff that people would do. They weren't into any of that. They were all about being fair and just, and they had this mentality of fair fights. This is the way that they thought all the time. Here's the problem with that. Even though it sounded good, and a lot of people were fans of the Starks, here's the problem that the Starks ran into over the course of the show Game of Thrones, is that nobody else thought that way. None of the other families that they dealt with, none of the enemies that they ended up coming across, or people that what actually happened is a whole bunch of people that they thought were friends, they found out were actually enemies. And people who they thought were neutral were actually plotting on the demise of the Starks. So because the Starks were always trying to play straight up and always trying to fight fair, once they came across people who didn't want to fight fair, they had a problem, which Niccolo Machiavelli laid out in his book, The Prince. Hint, if you haven't read that book, go get it. You can download it, PDF for free. If you try to be right and just and moral all the time, you're going to run into people who are not right, not just, and immoral, and they will use your righteousness and your justness against you to destroy you. And understand, this is not kindergarten, folks. You're not going to be able to go to the teacher and tell them you're going to be dead, or you're going to be out of a business, or you're going to be out of your money, or you're going to be out of your position, complaining about how they didn't play the game the same way that you play the game. In life, sometimes you have to adjust to your circumstances. And let me tell you a secret about life for those of you who are maybe too innocent to know it. Not everybody plays the game fair. The people that you're going to deal with in life are not all going to be fair. They're not all going to be righteous. They're not all going to be just. They're not all going to be moral. They're not all going to play by the rules. Some of them are going to be backhanded. Some will be deceitful. Some people will use you. Some people will use your niceness against you. Some people are just straight up assholes. Some people are just straight up negative. And if you try to play the moral righteousness card with those type of people, they are going to either laugh in your face, or they're going to backhand you, not backhand you, but they're going to backdoor you, use your niceness against you, take from you what they want to take from you, and then laugh behind your back. Right? You can't play the game just the way that you want to play the game all the time when you're dealing with different types of people all the time. Now, if you're dealing with some righteous, moral folks, then you can play the righteous, moral card. When you're dealing with some deceitful, snake-type individuals, you got to adjust to your situation. Now, if you live in Alaska, but you go on vacation in Miami, you're not going to walk around with a big parka on and a knitted hat and some hiking boots. You got to adjust to the environment. And if you live in Miami and you go on vacation in Alaska, you're probably not going to walk around with a tank top and shorts on with some thong sandals. It just doesn't make sense. You got to adjust to the environment that you're in. In life, you're going to run across all different types of people in life. And you don't want to be like the Starks. Because here's what ended up happening with many people in the Stark family in the Game of Thrones. And since Game of Thrones ended long enough ago, I'm going to give away a little bit of the plot. So if you are still planning on watching Game of Thrones, just fast forward about 30 seconds and I'll be done talking about this. Is that the father got his head chopped off. The mom got her throat slit. One of the sons, he got murdered. His wife, who was about to have his kid, she got murdered. And then the kids who survived, they all had to learn that, okay, this life is not as fair and just as our parents taught us it to be. We got to play the game a little bit differently. And that's the only reason that they were able to survive a little bit longer, because they realized that ethical, unfair advantages do matter. And listen, even though the title of this episode is Ethical, Unfair Advantage, some people are just not ethical. And if you're not equipped to deal with those people, they will use you. And it will be too late by the time you figured out what the hell happened. Let's move on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is an ethical, unfair advantage. Number 3, your job in life, in your business, in your career, is to continually seek to create and exploit your ethical, unfair advantages. You need to figure out what they can be based on what you're listening to here today, to create them for yourself, or if you already have them, identify them, and then exploit these advantages. This is what I mean when I told you in episode 1210, don't complain, play the game. You got to learn how to play the game in life. The game is not, again, folks, this ain't kindergarten. All right, this is not, I don't know, whatever else, I don't know what y'all listen to out here outside of this show. Outside of the 30 minutes you give me every day, I don't know what else y'all are paying attention to. This is not kindergarten. In kindergarten, everything was supposed to be fair. All right, this person you won last time, so now we got to set it up so this person can win this time. All right, that is some bullshit. I know that that's kind of like what the wokeism is these days, the wave. That ain't real. All right, it won't last. All right, people will try it. It's going to fail. All right, it might seem to be working for a little while. Overall, it's going to fail because human beings are human beings and we are not all equal. We were created equal. We don't remain equal. You want to find your ethical unfair advantage and play the game and use it to your advantage. And then you can help the people out who don't have game by doing similar to what I'm doing right now, giving people the game. But it's not my job to help you win. It's your job to help yourself win. But you got to understand what game you're playing so you can position yourself to play a game that you can win. All right? Don't play games that you can't win. All right? This is just, again, it sounds like common sense when you're aware of it, but I'm laying out some of these things that might be quote unquote common sense to some of you, but it ain't so common to others. So we got to make sure we give people everything so you know exactly what's going on. If you're a type of person, if you believe that visually you as a human being are pleasing on the eyes, then maybe you want to make videos and get photos taken of yourself, because that is where you have an unfair advantage over people who might not look so good, over ugly people. If you have a great voice, get on platforms where you can speak and be heard. If you like to talk, start a podcast. If you're great at the written word, then you should be writing a lot. Like, just leveraging your advantages. These are simple concepts. If you're tall, then people might say, hey, you might as well try to play basketball. If you're small and squat and very densely packed, then people might say you might want to do a combat sport like wrestling or MMA. It just makes sense. Now, again, I'm just using these as general examples. If you're an empath, then you might want to go the route of like Oprah Winfrey and having a talk show where you can just emotionally connect with other people and draw in an audience of people who are interested in things like that. If you're a type of person who's never say die and just kick people's ass and you're just tough as nails and no excuses about anything, then you might want to become a drill sergeant or become a personal trainer where you can just beat people up mentally and make them tougher and stronger, and they'll appreciate you for it because there's an audience of people who are looking for those things. You got to figure out where your gifts are, where your talents are, where you have an advantage over other people, where you have something about you that is different from the general population, and then leverage that advantage. There's a boxer by the name of Floyd Mayweather. And last I heard, he was a retired boxer. He fought one of the Paul brothers in an exhibition match. But other than that, he's retired from serious professional boxing matches. And when Floyd was actually boxing in his time, he was undefeated, by the way, 50-0 in his career. He was not a slugger. He wasn't the type of boxer that if you go to his fight, he's going to stand right in front of the other guy, and they're just going to punch each other out and just see who's standing at the end of the fight. Those are the kind of fights that are very exciting to watch. Can be very scary to watch too, because people can really get, combat sports, you can really get yourself fucked up. But Floyd, in his boxing days, he was pretty adept at every aspect of boxing. One of the things about him, though, is that he took very little punishment. He would not stand in and let himself get hit by his opponent. And I mean, part of the science of boxing is to hit the other guy, but not let the other guy hit you. That's how boxing is supposed to work. But there are people who are in boxing who are bloodthirsty. They just want to see slugging matches, and they would try to criticize Floyd and say, well, your boxing matches are boring because you don't stand in there and actually hit with people, or you are always dancing around the ring and not letting them hit you. You hit them, but you're not letting them hit you. Sounds like some little kids talking, right? You would think that grown men who understand the sport of boxing wouldn't say things like this. But people would try to criticize Floyd by saying stuff like this. But I remember watching a fight where he fought Manny Pacquiao. And this fight was, I believe it was in 2015. But it had been many years in the making. People were calling for those two guys to fight way back as far as like 2008. But they never got a chance to fight against each other. They finally fought in 2015. Floyd pretty much dominated the fight, every aspect of the fight. He outpointed Pacquiao. He hit Pacquiao way more times than Pacquiao hit him. His punching percentage, meaning the number of punches that he actually landed based on how many he threw, was a lot higher than Pacquiao's. Even if you don't understand boxing at a deep level, you can just look at the stats and see Floyd clearly won the fight. But people tried to criticize Floyd and say, oh, well, he was running from Pacquiao. He wouldn't stand in and just slug it out with Pacquiao. But the whole point of boxing, and I made a video talking about this, is on YouTube, you can find it. I made a point of talking about this the day after the fight. The whole point of boxing is to not get hit. It's not to show that you're this brave warrior by getting hit a whole bunch of times by the other guy and you're still standing. Listen, moral victories are for minor league coaches, folks. I don't want to stand and just let you hit me as many times as you can just to prove that I can take a punch. No, I want to not take any punches, but I'm going to punch you. That's the whole game. That's the science of the game. But it's dumb for anybody, somebody like Floyd, to try to play another person's game. Now, maybe Pacquiao's game is just throw punches with the other guy and let's see who gets hit the most and see who can still stand. That was a little bit more his style. Pacquiao's the kind of guy who just throws a ton of punches and let's just see which one will knock you down or knock you out. Floyd's style was to be more efficient with the number of punches he throws, but be more accurate in actually landing them. And the two styles went against each other and Floyd ended up winning. It would be dumb for Floyd to try to play Pacquiao's game because he probably would have lost. He won all the fights that he fought because he knew his game and he stuck to his script. And the thing is, his script happened to be good enough to beat any type of fighter that he went against, was why he ended up undefeated. The whole point of it is, it's not really about boxing. I'm just using that as an example for you to understand that in the macro and in the micro, meaning in the bigger world, when you choose where you want to focus at, and then in that world where you are focusing, you're going to have competitors there. How do you win in both spaces? Is you got to focus on where you have an unfair advantage that allows you to win over everybody else, even when they know exactly what you're doing, because they just can't do it as well as you. Let's recap today's class, which is the ethical unfair advantage. People have been asking me, what exactly does this mean? Does it actually exist? How do you do it? Let's get to it. Point number one. What it means is this: when you have a leg up on your competition that is not against the rules, it doesn't violate anyone's rights, but it gives you a better than 50-50 chance of winning. Like a casino has a better than 50-50 chance of taking your money. A 6'8" basketball player has a better chance of beating a 5'8" basketball player. You do not want fair fights in life. Those are for losers and idiots. Moral victories are for minor league coaches. Point number two, play your game on your terrain. This is what Sun Tzu said. Know yourself, know the terrain, know the enemy. In 100 battles, you will never be in peril. So what is your game? Where are you better than others? Where do you have a head start on the competition? All right, this is where you need to be playing. This is where your chances of winning are a lot higher. Investors do not get into investments unless they have an advantage. They have an information advantage, if they have a time advantage, they have an access advantage. They can just do things that you can't do. That's how they end up winning so often. It's not because they are geniuses, and it's damn sure not because they are lucky. They have unfair advantages that other people don't have, and that's the part they don't tell you about when they're preaching about hard work. Point number three, your job is to continually create and exploit your advantages. This is what's meant by playing the game. If you are pleasing on the eyes, take pictures of yourself. If you have a great voice, get a microphone. If you're great at the written word, you should be writing. Floyd Mayweather was great at outpointing boxers, so he never tried to outslug them. And this is why he was winning over and over again, because he knew his game and he stuck to his script, and he didn't allow anyone to take him off of his script. He made everybody play in his performance, if that makes sense. So all that being said, send me a text. Send me the best insight you got from today's class. My number is 305-384-6894. If you are looking to figure out what your ethical unfair advantage is, or if you know what it is, but you're just trying to figure out how to exploit it, how can you market it, how can you sell it, how can you make the most of it and make sure you get all the value out of the value that you bring to the table in life or at work, then you may be a good candidate for my 3rd Day Mastermind. It's the only place that I offer direct one-on-one coaching. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com/call, CALL, or just click the button that says join the mastermind. You will be able to sign up for a free Zoom call with me where we can talk about where you're at, where you want to go, and how I can help you get there. Work on your game. Dre all day.